Welcome to the Dreamit Dose. One of the most challenging and painful decisions you may have to face as a founder is deciding to shut down your startup. I've been through this personally, and it's an incredibly difficult decision to make and execute. Besides the massive emotions you have to deal with, it's hard to know what decision-making criteria you should use. This is not a fun topic to discuss, but critically important as less than 50% of startups make it. Let's dive in. Dreamit Ventures has been investing in great early-stage startups for over a decade. The Dreamit Dose allows us to share best practices to help even more founders. Tell us about your great startup using the links below. First, I want to clarify what I mean by shutting down and what I want you to avoid: becoming a walking dead startup. When I mean shut down, it means letting everyone go, shutting down all operations, possibly giving remaining money back to investors, and closing out all accounts. What you don't want to do is become one of the countless walking dead zombie startups. I see so many founders not fully shut down when they really should. They keep working on the company, trying to scrape by while running on fumes, constantly talking to investors about yet another bridge round, and just dragging things out. To me, this is like a patient in a hospital that's on life support, has no hope of recovering, and no one is willing to make the difficult decision. So what are the top criteria you should use to help decide if it's time to shut down? Let me give you a 4-part litmus test. If you can answer yes to all of these, you should strongly consider shutting down. Number 1, you've pivoted multiple times. Those pivots may be on your product, the customer focus. For example, you went from B2C to B2B. The go-to-market strategy, or the business model. You've done major pivots 3 or more times and still no heartbeat. You see no real traction anywhere. Number 2, you're out of cash and have been trying to raise for months with no genuine interest from investors, meaning no one's issued you a term sheet. And I mean you've pitched dozens and dozens of investors. Keep in mind it took Jeff Bezos over 60 meetings to raise his first $1 million for Amazon. But in your case, no one is offering you investment. So this isn't an investor saying, I'll invest if you find a lead. This is binary. Do you have a term sheet? Yes or no? One caveat before you come to this conclusion: make sure your strategy and deck are not a complete disaster, because that could lead to a false positive. If investors are telling you no, make sure to get and incorporate their feedback as to why. Okay, number 3, customer traction. Let's say you're B2B and you've met with dozens of customers. No one's buying. Or you're pre-product and no one is interested in buying at the price you need to charge. Or say you're B2C and you've tried dozens of customer acquisition experiments and can't find a way to acquire customers at a reasonable price. The 4th test, you've talked to several other companies about acquiring you. Perhaps you've even talked about an acqui-hire, but all they've shown interest in is the team, as they don't want any real or perceived liability of buying the company itself. So net-net, you've seen zero interest in acquisition. That's the 4-part litmus test. If you've answered yes to all of these about pivots, investors, customer traction, and acquisition, you should give very serious consideration to shutting down. Now, I want to hit one other really important issue in coming to this decision: the extreme emotional burden. You've invested your money, time, and maybe most importantly, your reputation into your company. You don't want to let people down: your team, co-founders, family, and yourself. You're not a defeatist, you're an entrepreneur. Realize making this decision is incredibly emotionally difficult. Strong emotions can cloud your decision-making when applying the litmus test. Just understand it can sometimes take weeks or months to come to the conclusion with all this emotional baggage. While we're talking about emotions, let's discuss why you need to get your headspace to moving on. I want to share a personal story. I was running a startup, Packlate.com, from 2009 to 2012. 3 years. We were in the vacation rental market. During that time, we raised just under $1.5 million, and we got the company to around $1 million in GMV annually at a 15% margin, but there was no further growth. The company had pivoted multiple times on the product, from B2C, B2B, customer focus, go-to-market strategy, and more. We were running on fumes. We tried to get acquired, talked to many possible suitors, but it just wasn't happening. At this point, 2 of my VC investors called me independently and said they had written off the investment. They were impressed with all of the pivots and experiments we did, but it was time to pack it in. And here's what they said to me: when we invest, we know the risk we're taking. Sometimes it doesn't work. We're big boys. This is what we do for a living. We're writing this off, and I'll never forget their next words. And you should too. It's time for you to move on. Your opportunity cost is too high. Shut it down. Don't be the walking dead. That just blew me away. It took me a few weeks to come to grips with what I had to do. Inform the team, talk with customers, and shut it down. And we did. What was so incredibly helpful in my case is that I had professional investors who I respected deeply telling me to shut it down and move on. What I want to emphasize to you is keeping in mind your opportunity cost. It's essential to move on and not keep pouring your blood, sweat, and tears into something that's not going anywhere. It's okay to let go and move on to your next thing. Okay, that's it. That's how you know if it's time to shut down. First, make sure you don't turn into the walking dead and become a startup zombie. Second, a 4-part litmus test to decide. At least 3 big pivots, no investors, no material customer traction, no acquirers. Third, recognize the heavy emotional burden and that it can cloud your thinking. And finally, fourth, realize that your opportunity cost of not shutting down and moving on is huge. That's it. That's your Dreamit Dose. Please leave your questions in the comments section. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. We have a lot more coming. To see all of our doses, go to dreamit.com/dose. See you next time. You should give very serious consideration to shutting down. You should give very serious consideration to shutting down.
I'm serious.
I know. Let me just read that last paragraph. No investors, no material customer traction, no acquihires, no acquirers. I screwed that up.